And we're going to start with a blurry background, but the logo is going to be in the foreground. And then the logo is going to fade down, and then we're going to go, hey.
Well, your hair is
Bad?
interesting.
Well, this is what I chose.
Yeah.
I knew this was
real.
happening.
This is real right now.
The worst part is,
Wow.
it's one thing if you choose this and then you get into your day and you're like, ah, dang it, I forgot I had that thing. I chose this knowing that I was going to be on camera. There's just a little bit of self-loathing.
And I also want you to know, when you watch it back, that's how much I care about you, that I said something about it.
Thank you.
That you wouldn't look at it and go, what else did he not tell me in this conversation that I thought was going to be...
No bats in the cave, right? Justin, we know each other.
Yeah.
These people probably don't know us, and they also don't know how we know each other.
Yep.
Tell me who you are.
Yeah. Who am I? Wow, great question.
Deep
question. I'm a 40-something Midwesterner who is an entrepreneur and loves capturing people's stories, and that's why I have a video production company, and love looking for stories of brands to tell. So I don't know. Who am I? 40-something entrepreneur who loves chasing stories.
A lover, a fighter.
A lot of those things.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Carson. I am 25. I also really enjoyed being behind a camera, in front of a camera, around a camera, and that's why Justin and I are good friends. It started a couple years ago in a lobby when he cornered me and asked about my creative pursuits, and we were like, I think we could do something together.
Yeah.
But now we get to do stuff like this. So I'm figuring life out. Justin's about 15 years ahead of me.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I am just so curious about right now is marriage. And full disclosure, it's because I got married 3 months ago. And who stood at that altar doing all of the marital stuff? But this guy right here. So, yeah, we've gotten to walk together through the last couple months.
Yeah.
Couple years. But that doesn't answer the question of like why we're sitting in a dark room with a lot of Edison bulbs hanging out around a table. What I want to know is, as a guy who's 25, trying to be a good husband, it feels like so much of life comes back to money. And when you think about all the goals, all the things I see in you, right? You are a homeowner, you have kids, and you're finding ways to provide for them and invest in their future. You are generous, you're able to pick up the check sometimes, like I've seen you do that. I feel like right now, I don't even know where to start. And my default is, right, because this is the narrative I've built, well, you've probably always had it all together. You probably just knew what to do from the beginning. Is that true? Do you feel like you had a grasp on things? What wisdom can you share from your experience of 15 years plus on someone like me?
Yeah, I can, let me just answer it straight out. I knew less than you knew today. I was, and I know you well enough to say this, I was less responsible.
Well,
and probably have
pretty irresponsible.
And I dug a bigger ditch than I want to probably admit. Now, I'm grateful in 15 years time span that I've learned a handful of things and know how to probably not repeat myself. But I needed some principles. One, I'm deeply grateful that I had people around me that cared deeply that I would learn responsibly how to become financially aware. But it took me my own time to figure that out because I've had my share of run-ins with don't have it now, but I'll have it later, or, I'm going to get there because I'm going to get there. It's okay to, what's a few bank processing fees, right? But what I would say that helped me the most in the process of where I am today, what you see today, to actually get to where I am today.
Super practical.
Yeah. Opening up to people about what I didn't know. I needed to be more transparent on not wanting people to think I know versus going, oh man, I don't know, how do I get there? So I was ultimately ended up being where you were with a handful of people in my life going, I need some help.
Yeah. Well, and I love that we live in a time in history where even if you don't necessarily have that relationship with parents or cousins or a mentor, like there are communities that open the conversation. There are resources that are doing that. And obviously Cambio is one of them. But yeah, what did you find as you talked to people, engaged in dialogue, practically? How did you get to having enough to even put down a down payment on a house?
Yeah. I would tell you first of all, it's leveraging the tools,
Okay.
right? Like getting an awareness of where you're at and how much work do you actually have to do. We didn't go to school for it, or we don't have like a technical education in it. All of a sudden, the things that, are other people's molehills become our mountains.
Mm,
And first of all, be okay with that. It's the moment that you have to climb a mountain that you probably want somebody to come along with you.
yeah.
And probably somebody who's done it before. Because all of a sudden it doesn't seem as far away. It doesn't seem as high, and there's someone to encourage you. And so I would say that's the first reason to get somebody around you. It should feel overwhelming. I don't. Not everybody goes to school for this stuff.
Yeah.
But when you start to feel overwhelmed, don't tell yourself you're alone. I'm telling you, that's one of the reasons I've loved the chance to tell the Cambio story, is because of what they're trying to do. They know people are struggling with, oh my gosh, where am I? How deep am I in? I have a goal. How high do I have to climb, or somewhere in between all of those emotions? And one thing I can tell you is the tools we have today were not as accessible as they were 15 years ago. How did we get to some of the goals that you ultimately see? It was realizing that it's not one straight shot to get there.
Yeah, so all those things considered, what does it look like? Again, super practical to get to that place, because it is not only my financial goal, right? The big thing in front of me is to get the down payment on the house. But we find users of Cambio, we find Americans in general, like that is just a goal they have. Like we all want to have a place to call our own.
Yeah.
I don't want to be throwing money into rent forever. So what did it look like for you to be able to make that payment? Were you ready when it came?
Yeah, I think there's been a long time American dream that everybody owns a home. I think somewhere into that, what has allowed it to get a little out of perspective is when that should happen. So even when I was in my mid 20s, it was like, get there as soon as possible. Rent isn't always the best use of your money. And that puts some really crazy pressure on people to go, if I don't have it in my resume by this time, am I doing something wrong?
Yeah.
And so the very first thing to ask yourself is, what's the context of my current financial climate that I'm living through? And so today, what I would say is rent versus owning. If you're 20 something and you're still trying to figure out what your career looks like, who you want to spend the rest of your life with,
Yep.
where you want to live in the world, don't look at like your housing decision as this isolated milestone you want to reach on your resume when you don't even know where you want to live and what you want to contribute to and who you want to do that with. My very first piece of advice to you is that renting could be the greatest freedom you have, while the ultimate goal out there is to say, I want to own when I'm in a different season of life. So my first question is, have you given yourself the permission to know how to dream and when to dream for some of these outputs, like owning a home? Because rent might be the greatest competitive advantage you have to having that total output that you want of your life.
Yeah, no doubt. So because you were given that opportunity, you showed up, they run a credit check when you're ready to put down that 20%, what have you. It goes flawlessly and you move forward.
Yeah, it was perfect. I saw the caller ID on my phone come from the loan officer, ready for approval. Let's move forward with the closing.
Right.
My soon-to-be wife and I have all the dreams already built for this first place that we're going into. And he goes, hey, quick question for you. Did you ever live, and he spouts off this address from my freshman year of college, because I'm 25 now, so this is 7 years ago. And I'm like, yeah, I lived there. Okay, cool. Slight problem. What's the problem? You owe them money. Like, I'm like, what are you talking about? And we, through a series of events, like, found out that, like, our safety deposit didn't meet the standard at which we had left.
So it was a party house.
It apparently still showed some wounds from me living there. But honestly, I was getting the call that was going to, like, be the most joyful moment, right? We're going to have our first place.
Yeah.
And here's something that I did 7 years ago that I didn't even know, because it's not like that traditional way we think it's going to hit our credit.
Yeah.
Right? Because maybe, you do an 18-month finance and you don't pay it off at the end, you get a ding, there's a medical bill. Like, we know the traditional things. Man, not on this day. Because I thought I was doing some things right. But we had left that apartment in a way that wasn't covered just by our safety deposit. And I ultimately had to go make that right. I had to go find the new owners of that building. I didn't know how to like dispute this like 7-year-old thing. And now here we are on a time sensitive offer. And I had to go through a bunch of hoops. And yeah, it went as perfect as possible. Like I had like a day to go make sure I paid it off, got it to the underwriters, to like keep moving forward on this dream. And ultimately, it made me have to pay more for an interest rate because this was there. And I did not know a decision I was making at 18, 19 was going to show up in my storytelling or the narrative of a dream that I would have at 25 with this person that I want to share my life with.
Yeah. So again, like when we look at tools we have today that we did not have then, Cambio steps in this really profound way. Because what would it have looked like back then to open the Cambio app and see, man, I have an unresolved issue. Like I apparently owe money somewhere, but I never have thought about it. Or maybe I opened a Best Buy card because I know you have a little bit of a problem.
Small technology
We're still working on getting you help. But like if you have that Best Buy card that's unpaid, right? How can I resolve these items that have maybe been sent to collections, but maybe are just standing in a state of limbo so that when I show up to pay the 20%, that it goes smoother than your story?
Yeah. So 2007 to where we are today, that is what has changed. Like as we're planning our dreams and the stage of life that you're at with this partner of yours that you want to share the rest of your life with, you have to engage the tools.
Yeah.
Like we all are pretty comfortable, I believe, with online banking, right? We need to add to our financial dreams and tools where we stand with our credit.
Yeah.
Like I know we are bombarded with like, hey, free credit analysis, all this other stuff. But have you chosen your partner? One of the things that draws me to Cambio's story is that like the very first thing they want to do is make sure you know where you stand in the credit game.
Yeah.
So a lot of us know we probably should have an Excel spreadsheet at the very least for our budgeting, maybe a notes in your app of what you
one
spent.
of these many apps that help you now, which I just had to do because my wife and I are figuring all that out.
Because we know we need personal budget.
Yeah, for sure.
But I would tell you, if you know, and those of you watching, you have a dream to own a car, you have a dream to buy a house, you have a dream to buy a ring, to share this life with somebody, whatever those dreams look at. My question to you is, do you have all the tools to build your dreams?
Yeah.
And so right now, I think it's a foregone conclusion that you need to have some kind of understanding of what's coming in and how much are you going to spend out and how much surplus will you have to help build that dream. That's called a budget.
Yeah.
My question is, so if your dreams require tools and leveraging the financial world to say, hey, if I save this much, they'll allow me to take a risk on me by this much, that's a mortgage, right? My credit worthiness allows me to say if I have this much, then I'm worth, I'm worth the risk at this level.
Where I pay less on the monthly car payment, or right, like have opportunities to increase assets without worrying about the burden that comes over the long term.
And what I love about Cambio specifically is, okay, if you're just starting out and you don't know where you're at, find out where you're at. Get that free credit, analysis. But that's when we start to actually get the details of our individual stories. And that's where things start to deviate, because then you can look at Carson and I and say, well, those two individuals have this story. And that's fair, because that's where most of our minds go, because they go, but they don't know my story.
Right.
And I think that's what's most interesting about Cambio and the tools they have after the analysis. They give you a practical next step. If you need to dispute something, let us help you with that. If you want to do it yourself, we have the resources for that. If you want to do it in the app in a more automated way, they can come alongside you to help you start right away to get to that financial future that you desire for yourself. I'm going to tell you this. When I started my financial journey and started to want to get owning it, those kind of tools were so much harder to find, and they were behind institutions that were systemically holding them probably a little bit more close to the vest. I'm glad Cambio has found a way to go, I want to democratize some of those tools and come alongside people.
So I think the thing about Cambio that always resonates with me, and of course, we're going to be biased, right? Because we get to speak on behalf of them.
Yep.
But I think what resonates is that it isn't give us your dollars first. It's, hey, come on board, give us a chance to be the provider that you want to trust before we ask for a single cent. Do a free trial, get access to some of these items on the back end that you've maybe never seen before. And then beyond that, if you don't choose to pay, we're giving you the resources yourself so that you can go do it. But hey, if you don't have the time, if you're like the rest of us, if you feel like you've got to pick up the kids here and you got to change the internet provider here to save a couple bucks and you're going to have all these meetings, instead, we'll do it for you. But at that point, there is a cost because we want to make sure that you get the best care. We want to make sure that it's something that once you've checked the box, once you've given us your approval, that we have the total bandwidth to go forth and, again, make life easier so that when you want to take out a mortgage on a house, that you don't get a call saying you left your apartment in a shitty state.
Yeah, it's so crazy to think about that example even today. But you know, one thing as you were speaking that I hope that if you get nothing else out of this time together is if our story doesn't bring you hope, because I know we can't speak to all contexts in all situations. Cambio is building a community of people just so you know you're not alone.
Yeah.
And we want you to know, like, maybe you're just needing an analysis. Maybe you do need that help disputing that first thing. Maybe you need a credit rebuilder loan, or maybe you just need to become a part of a community. Can I just say this? Don't just look at us and go, those guys don't get it, because that's true. There's going to be places that we fall off and we want to be a part of a community, but we only have our experiences to glean from. Cambio is building a community. Be a part, be in a place where this company is going, come join us. We know that we are going to continue to gather people of a diverse set of circumstances, but we do have one goal. Do they have the tools to achieve their dreams?
Well said. So whether it is downloading the app and getting access to those templates, again, just the first step of knowing where you need to start, what your standing is. But then if you want to be a part of this initiative where we're adding 1 million points to America's credit score, right? Hear that 1 million means that there are many, many alongside you so that you are not trekking the mountain by yourself. You have a Sherpa, you have someone carrying the gear, you have friends who are making you laugh in the process. That's what really will help you go far, even if it doesn't always feel fast.
I want to speak to speed real quick, only because you brought it up. There are certain parts of these financial goals that we have in our lives, especially if we're starting a little behind. We've made some choices 7 years previous that are showing up now that I thought would take a longer period of time just because we have some general knowledge. The world is moving faster now. That's another benefit of this Cambio culture is the speed at which they want you to see results for your hard work. And so things that I thought would take years have truncated their timelines to weeks and months to start to see the long-term effects. Yes, there is a long-term effect to us changing our behaviors for sure. But the one thing Cambio has taught me is there are some instant hits that you can see in 30, 60, 90, 6 months period of time that I thought would take years. And I think that's a really cool unlock that I'm seeing from the community here at Cambio and the people behind the scenes going, let's give people some of that initial hope that their practices, their change, their desire to own their financial future, we can give them hits longer than what the general public might say is a myth. Takes time to see the benefits. I'm telling you, you might be able to see a change in just 30 days.
Yeah. So if you can stick with us for 1 month or more, we hope that you'll join us in this process. But thanks for sitting in on a conversation between a rookie and a pro, or maybe that's a little generous.
It's generous.
A rookie and less of a rookie.
Yeah.
We're so grateful to have this time with you, and we hope it serves you well. If you want to take your next step, download that Cambio app wherever your app store would be, or go to cambiomoney.com to get access to those free templates, maybe some blogs that'll teach you a couple things, and we'll catch you in the next one.